Welcome to the chaos. Today, I'm going to paint up this beholder. I say today as if I'm going to do it all in one sitting. I'm not. This will probably be filmed over several days, but you might not even notice that because I plan to spend most of the time filming this guy. I am not a painting channel. Please bear that in mind. I'm going to start with the base. With these types of minis, for some reason, I just always do. I primed it in black and then Zenithal highlighted it with grey and white. I was going to originally paint it all with contrast paints like Rattling Grime, you can see here. However, I quickly realised that was not going to be effective, and so I changed my mind. Should I have stripped it and reprimed it? Probably. Did I? No. So I'm just putting a coat of Rattling Grime all over the stonework on the base and the little bit of raised wall. This is the Observer Mini by DM Stash. I purchased it from Mitts and Sims, a link to their website in the description box below. I almost exclusively purchase my 3D resin minis from them now. Their quality is superb, the choice is amazing, and the customer service is second to none. So, Rattling Grime done. I'm now going to use the Wildwood contrast paint just to paint the wooden parts of the chest. I love this mini. There is so much detail in it. I've been looking forward to painting this and have been waiting until I feel I'm good enough. Am I good enough? Probably not. But I wasn't going to wait any longer. One of the reasons I chose this mini is because I love the dynamic pose of the beholder and the fact they've managed to make it look as though it's hovering without obviously having it stuck to something to get that effect. I do enjoy painting minis in short bursts. However, I am definitely not going to be one of these hobby channels giving guides on how to paint things because I'm just not good enough or experienced enough to do that. I just thought I'd paint this up and show you my process. This is the point when I should be getting out and using my wet palette. However, I don't get on very well with my wet palette. I do thin my paints. I do it by dipping the brush in water, wiping the excess off on the kitchen roll that is always to hand when I'm painting, and then just applying it. It's how I paint. It's just what I do. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I'm just using this to apply a base coat to the scrolls. I'm aware it's a layer paint, however, it's the colour that I wanted. I tend to use bases and layers interchangeably when I'm painting. Scrolls done. It's now time for me to paint up the books, and for these I'm going to be using Rhinox hide. In this particular video I am using exclusively Citadel paints, however I do also own some Vallejo paints and do use them from time to time. However, I do have to get the wet palette out to use them, so in many cases Citadel is just easier. On to the metallics. So I'm first applying a little bit of Lead Belcher to the metal bands on the chest. And then some Retribution armour on the coins that are scattered about. Apologies for not holding it properly in shot. I can't see the screen when I'm painting. I then went over the scrolls with Seraphim Sepia just to dirty them up and make them look older. And then I used Reichland Flesh Shade over the Retribution armour on the coins, again just to age them, make them look a little less bright. Now it's on to the dry brushing. First, a little dryad bark just on the chest to bring out, there's some details on the chest. I could have picked them out with the metallic, however, I didn't want to spend that much time on the base. This was fine. Then a little screaming skull, dry brushed onto the tops of the scrolls just to highlight those a bit. Then just a little of the Golden Griffin dry paint just to highlight the coins. And now it's time to start the dry brushing. I actually quite like dry brushing. I can still be a bit heavy-handed at times, but hey, I've been painting for just under a year now, so I've made progress. So this is Eshin Grey that I'm just going to use to dry brush the stonework, just to kind of emphasize some of the cracks and highlights. And once that's dry, it's out with the Mechanicus Standard Grey, just to add a second layer of dry brushing. Now it's time to move on to the actual mini. I don't mind that this beholder only has 4 eye stalks. I still love how it looks. So I wanted to do mine in a kind of burgundy colour. So I am using, and I will probably mispronounce this, Gal Vordak Red. 2 thin coats, as they say, over the majority of the mini. Once the base coats were dry, I went over them with Sigvold Burgundy, which for some unknown reason I didn't film. This is me now taking some Screamer Pink, and I'm just going to dry brush the details on the face of the beholder and also some of the scales on the body and tentacles. Once this was done, I took some Baraknar Burgundy and used this to paint the eyelids. Body more or less complete, I moved on to the teeth and the horns, tusks, spikes on the jaw. I painted them with a layer of Ushabti bone. I then decided to use Seraphim Sepia, again just to make them look more aged, more yellow. I decided to do the eyes a very light, bright blue. So I based the central eye and the tentacles with Baharoth blue. I should point out that normally I would do all the base coat, all the contrast, all the layers in that order. However, because the body of this mini is the majority of it and the other areas are quite small, I decided that I would do the biggest area first and hopefully not get too much blue paint on it. Once the blue had dried, I then took some Abaddon Black or Abaddon Black, the black paint, and used it to paint the slit pupils on the 5 eyes. Whilst I did actually remember to film this, I did it almost entirely out of shot. This is my first time trying to film in this way. Clearly, there are mistakes still to be ironed out. Screaming Skull to highlight the ends of the teeth, again mostly done completely out of shot. The teeth are very, very fine. It's not as easy to paint as, say, squig teeth, but I think I did okay. I felt Blue Horror was the right colour to highlight the eyeballs with, but what I wasn't sure about was exactly where to highlight them. So I just did a thin line of paint on the curve of each of the eyeballs. That done, I then had to go over some of the burgundy base coat just where I'd accidentally painted it cream or blue to try and neaten it up. I find this happens a lot, and I will clean up my mistakes, and in the process of doing that cleanup, mess up a different colour, clean that up, mess up the first colour again. It just goes on forever, so I do the cleanest job I can. And here he is. I gave him a final dry brush of Screamer Pink just to really make the scales pop, and then a light coat of a matte varnish. He's not going to win any competitions, but he is tabletop ready, and I'm very happy with him. This mini was an absolute pleasure to paint.